It's the I Can't Mom Today podcast with Heather, the new mom, and Vera, the seasoned mom. I Can't Mom Today.
Hey, this is Vera and Heather back again with another episode of I Can't Mom Today podcast. Hi, Vera.
Hey, Heather.
How are you?
I'm good. Pollen's getting to me, but other than that, I'm good.
So you've moved past winter and gone to pollen now.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds fantastic.
We're having into spring.
We're having like 60-degree days here. So
that's pretty warm for Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been warm here too. Yeah.
Seriously though, vitamin D, it's important.
Yeah, there you go. So we have a very special guest with us today. Carrie,
Yeah.
say hi, Carrie.
Hi.
Well, Carrie, actually, I've known Carrie since college. We won't say how many years ago that was, but it was a few.
A couple.
And so we've been friends since then. Then Heather got to know Carrie through me. And actually, Heather, we touch on every so often about how Heather used to watch my son. And there were times where Heather used to babysit for Carrie's girls when they were little.
Yeah.
I got around. I mean,
many times.
That's right. Heather got around.
And
Yeah.
she is the one who, her daughter, youngest daughter, taught me that not all babies are alike. Because Luke, when I used to babysit him, Vera would have me go in and check like every, 1 minute to make sure he's breathing and like he didn't like fall out of bed or whatever. And Lena, when I went in to check on her, the very first time
that's Carrie's younger daughter.
at her, it was like I turned on a switch. Like her eyes immediately popped open and she cried for the rest of the night. It was hard.
I would be like, don't go in there, whatever you do.
Yeah.
Well, then after, when I was like, oh, she had a really rough night, Carrie's like, why? Why did you go in there? I was like, it's Vera.
Because Vera always has me check in on Luke.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, as a teenager, she's showing me also that all teenagers are not alike. So she's not changed at all.
Excellent.
There you go. She's an amazing bird.
She is.
With that said, why don't you tell us, what I was thinking, because you have a lot of experience. Well, you had a home daycare and you took care of my son, Luke, for some part of some time. And then also, what your degree is in and what you do, because I know that you have a lot of experience and knowledge in the area of children as they're developing, especially younger than the age of 3. So I wanted to talk about that, to start talking about that. But give us a scoop on you.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, I definitely don't consider myself an expert in any way, but I do have my degree in child development, bachelor's degree. I was working on my master's degree and completed all of my coursework in child development until I completed all the coursework and then gave birth to my first daughter. And all I had left to do was my thesis. And I made the decision not to go back and finish my thesis because, I just decided I was done with school. And so I promised myself I wouldn't have any regrets. I'm going to stand by that, although I have some regrets.
Yep.
With the child?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right? No, not with the child, with the degree.
She's a great kid. Or adult.
So I don't know. I always loved working with kids. And when I was in college, I worked at an after school program and eventually in a child development center, and I just loved it. So I've somehow stayed in the field of working with young children. It's changed from the preschool world to the child welfare world. I was a caseworker at one point for protective services and eventually led into just more administrative work. Now work for the courts, and we focus on improving courts that are where children are removed from their parents' care and placed in foster care. We're working on court improvement. So just educating court and professionals who work with young children about the vulnerable population of infants and toddlers and how they're very unique to other children because of their, their development, their rapid brain development and attachment needs. And so now over the last several years, I've been focusing on that age group and in the context of child welfare.
So do you, obviously, you said now you're more on the administrative side to things, but if I remember correctly, there was a point where and you could still be involved with this, it kind of wraps into you working with the courts, but where you have to explain to these people who are working with children or, making decisions on behalf of these children, especially these little ones, these toddlers and infants. How do you feel it is best to explain why? I mean, you touched on the fact that their brains are different and everything, but are there some specifics that you can think of, some specific instances that you would use as an example for why infants and toddlers have these special needs?
Well, yeah, it's what the communication we put out really is all around the training, exactly that. So the field is really, it's called infant mental health, and a lot of people are who aren't in the field kind of get confused because you picture a baby laying on a couch when you think of infant mental health, but it really is a very special time frame in the child's life because like I said, their brains are about 80% developed by the time they reach age 3.
Wow.
And it's funny because a lot of people back in the day, at least, used to think, well, it's okay if it's okay because a baby can't remember or a baby doesn't understand or doesn't speak. So we don't have to worry about specific things when it comes to babies. But we know now through research that it's actually the opposite. Babies feel, remember, and their bodies, kind of keep the score, really. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but what we talk about really a lot is their attachment needs. And it's funny because one thing I didn't talk about, but Vera, you mentioned, is I had a home daycare where, so that I could stay home with my own kids, I opened up a home daycare. And so I had kids under 5. It was great. And what I found was really funny. Well, to me, it was funny, but the parents, it wasn't until I had to leave my children somewhere that it impacted me. But parents would drop their babies off with me or their toddlers, and they would go right to me and sometimes even call me mama or, it almost seemed like they were more comfortable with me. It was just the perception, but that was this attachment really is what it was. And I had some fun conversations with the moms who I became quite close with. Yeah. Even at times when they would come to pick up their child, the child didn't always want to go to them because they wanted to stay with me. And it was just really what we know about attachment is that these young kids really need to have attachment figures and they can attach to multiple people. And so the need for that secure attachment was actually, we were responding to their needs for the secure attachment. And I would try to talk about that with the parents, but it's still different when you drop your child off and they're like, they go running off and they're like, yay, you're like, well, what about me? You're supposed to be sad. But that's actually a really, really, really good thing. So so that's what we do. We do education on attachment and brain development and the needs for young kids. And, specifically in my world where kids are being, placed in other homes and the need for the child to feel attached to that caregiver. But it goes, it's everywhere. Caregivers, parents, grandparents, babysitters, their needs are just so special. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, Heather, the babysitter.
Look at kids up, guys.
I don't like my head off. He loves you now, though.
Oh my gosh.
Times where I didn't like him either.
Yeah. Oh, it's just because Heather was strict.
Yes. My nephew one time was like, I don't like you. I was like, I'm not fond of you either right now.
It wasn't that Heather was the fun one.
No, I was never the fun one.
It was not the fun babysitter. You knew that your kid was safe and cared for, but it wasn't like you came home.
Like you got one TV show. Baker does the same thing. It's the same thing for Baker. Like he has one. If I say one show, you're one show. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no nudging with Heather. And hey, man, that's good.
It was good. Yes.
Yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely.
But going back to the baby thing, because this was a thing I was thinking about for our moms who listen to the podcast. And like you mentioned, infant mental health. And so like, that seems like, oh, okay, well, you love on them, you care for them. But can you think of specific things that are recommended to help an infant and toddler's mental health? Because it's hard because they don't really talk quite yet. So what do you do and some of it might seem obvious, but what do you think are the top things to do so that moms know when they're exhausted? I know if at least I'm doing these two things, I know I'm doing most everything.
You're doing okay, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because it's our instinct, right? So as moms, the majority of us have that instinct to respond to the baby. So it's really what we're doing already. But when you recognize it, you're kind of like, man, I'm promoting my infant's development, but so for example, when your baby looks at you and you look back at the baby and the baby makes a face and you imitate that baby's face, you're kind of doing this, I think they call it serve and return. So the baby is communicating something and you're almost being like the baby's mirror, but you're giving that baby that feedback and interaction, and it encourages the baby to continue. But it's not only kind of entertaining the baby, but it's also giving that baby the understanding that you are aware and you're in tuned and you're responding, and it's a security thing, which is interesting because we naturally, I'll be in a restaurant and I see a baby make a face and I'll make a face back at the baby, and the baby coos and you want to just smile back. And so it's the eye contact, really, the imitating the baby's face and playing the peekaboo, just that contact that you're already giving is so important. But sometimes it can feel like, when it's a baby. Vera, actually, I remember before you had Luke, and I think it was when I had my first. Yeah, it was because Luke is in between my two girls. Yeah. But I remember when I had to go somewhere and I left. I don't know, Kyla, she was maybe 2 weeks old. I left her for a couple hours with my husband. I think you called, and he was like, the baby. She was in the background crying, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with her." And you're like, "Yeah, they're just like a lump of meat right now." Yeah. I remember that my husband thought that was a really great way but sometimes it does feel that way when they're, they can't give you that same, interaction that maybe a 6-month-old will, but they're, the noises, the eye contact, and
just the physical touch, because, they are baby holders for premature babies because they know that physical touch, if parents can't be there or parents aren't around or whatever, that physical touch is helping them heal and grow. And the nursing staff can't always be there to sit there. They have other things to attend to. And I also read a study a while ago, I don't remember where it was, about kids in foster care and how they are orphanages and they sit in cribs. And so they're lacking once they get to a certain age because they didn't get that touch and that interaction because there's not enough people to go around.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. If you Google, I think you could probably find it if you Google, it's called the still face experiment. That is actually a really great way to see. It's a healthy, it's a mom and a baby, and the mom does this experiment with the baby where she's told the baby's sitting in a high chair, and the mom is told to, just do her regular cooing and interacting with the baby, and the baby's kind of, making noise, babbling, and the mom's babbling back, and then she's being real interactive, and then she's told to turn around, like kind of put her back to the baby and then turn back around and just have a flat affect, like a flat face, and not respond to the baby. And you can see the baby reaching out for the mom and trying to get her attention, and the mom is not responding. It makes you want to cry, but then, it's all better in the end.
Poor baby.
But you can see this is because it's a healthy attachment that the baby recovers really fast. But it's funny, the psychologist who's talking about this experiment is really kind of giving a play-by-play. Okay, the baby's now, reaching out for the mom. Now the baby is avoiding the mom by trying to turn her head around and look away, and then she kind of screeches out and she's mad, and but then the mom starts to interact again and everything's back to normal. So that shows that, you can have, because we all have our moods and our, situations. Of course, babies feel when we're feeling a certain way, but when you have that healthy attachment, the recovery is quick and clear. So, but yeah, I would encourage you to look up that still face experiment. It's actually very interesting.
Yeah. I'd be curious about that. Well, that's, of course, Luke didn't know what he was doing when he was a baby, what kind of faces he was making, when he was really little. But of course, I remember the first time he smiled, and who knows, it could have just been gas, like they say. Yeah. But I was like, oh my God, yay! So excited. And then, when you did something he didn't like he hated when you changed his diaper. So you'd get all done. He'd be fussing and crying, and then you'd pick him up and hold him, when they're still little, like right under the armpits,
Oh,
he would just look at you like with a total frowny face. Like, just like a cartoon, like the frowny face, and look at you like a, how dare you do that to me? That was so violating.
I can picture his face too.
Yeah. Well, you knew him when he was a baby. Well, you know him now, but still. Yeah. So it was just so, and I remember kind of laughing and then feeling bad that I was laughing at him for being so upset. But
yeah, that's so funny.
But then,
there's this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're moving on, I mean, then again, this moves you into the toddler years, because that just fascinates me, that what you said about a brain is almost fully developed, 80% developed, you said, by the time someone's 3. I mean, that's crazy. So
if you imagine all of your interactions and the experiences the baby or the toddler, those experiences, how those shape, their emotional development, their physical development, their social development, all of that's why it's such a critical stage. I mean, it makes you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
What did I do to my child?
6 months. So how can I fix
I know. No, and I will tell you, okay, I told you I was almost at my master's degree in child development, but then by the time I became a mom, it all went out the window. I mean, there were sometimes I'd be like, oh yeah, this is that, but out the window, and I was just in survival mode of a mom with a baby and wanting to do everything right. But now, of course, I go back and because they're older now, and the work that I'm doing, I look back, I'm like, oh gosh.
I know.
You always think about what you could have done better, right?
Oh, of course. That's that's the feeling, that mom guilt and everything. That's what we try and touch on, and make you feel better, make you feel like you're not alone as a mom, because you can, like you said, you're in survival mode.
And it's okay to just not be perfect. I mean, I think that's clear to this group,
Yeah.
we joke about that kind of stuff, but we got to support each other at the same time. And
for sure. Exactly. Yeah. And no, that's why I asked her. I was like, okay, well, what's the most important thing other than the obvious,
Yeah. Well, what's interesting for the toddlers is that, which I also, there's this thing called circle of security. And so if you think about Heather, if you think about watching him play, and how you're basically your child's secure base. So once they're mobile and they start to branch out a little bit and they start to play, you see them come back every so often and sort of check in with you. And then they go back out into what is considered their big bad world, and they're experiencing their world and they're experimenting. You might have some boundaries for them, but they're safely exploring their world, but they come back to you as sort of that secure base. That's them checking in. And when they have that secure base, that just continues to promote their social, emotional development. So that's another interesting, when if you go to a preschool, or if you go to the park, or, you have a little play date or something, you'll see that kind of check back in. It's just another really cool thing to watch as you're, if you're aware that that's what they're doing, it's really cool, because then you're like, oh man, you just to imagine their brains during that time,
So you know that you're doing
fascinating.
something right if they're coming back to you and not like running away from you all the time.
Yeah,
Although
or
they
having,
do
you know,
that,
or-
but
Yeah, I was like, but they do that, right?
Yeah, they do that too.
Yeah.
They do that too. But those little ones, or to another secure base. Again, they can have multiple secure attachments, multiple attachment figures. So it is that interesting relationship there, how they come back for that security.
Do they become more rational
But
after 3? Once their brain is fully developed, is there rational?
you're talking to two moms of teenagers. Come on now.
Yeah, it might
Still
be.
not.
I might need a minute. I'm just hoping I become rational again myself.
Right?
So.
Do we become rational?
Yeah.
How do you explain something to a child that, because with Baker, he gets angry and loses his mind. So then we put him in timeout, and he'll sit there and like lose his mind some more, and then he comes out of timeout and he calms down after he's out. But I have a conversation, I'm like, hey buddy, do you know why you're in timeout? Yeah. Well, okay. But he can never tell me, but then I'm like, you know, it's because you weren't listening to mommy or daddy, or you hit us or whatever. And that's not okay. And and we need you to think about it and listen to us when you're in that state. And then he's like, okay. And then never remembers it.
Oh.
So the next time he's hitting us or whatever, and he thinks it's funny to kick and it's not. And we keep telling him, and then we're like, stop.
Or maybe he's just testing, right? Like I think he probably there's probably some memory, and it depends, of course, what it is, but testing to see how consistent. And like you said, Heather, I mean, like you were talking about when we were joking, sort of with Luke and with my girls, when you were babysitting, you were consistent and firm, fair, consistent, and firm, but that boundary, I think kids are so much more, they're going to test their boundaries with their parents or those that they're closest to, more than maybe others. And so that's just that, just that testing and seeing what's going to happen this time.
Somebody else watches your kid, like not like a regular babysitter or something. They're like, oh, he was amazing. He didn't do X, Y, and Z. No, he didn't try and kick you. No. Oh, okay.
So he did.
I must be doing something right.
Or if you see them doing something that they know they shouldn't be doing, and they kind of get that look in their eye, and they smile, and
I know that.
Or just the look. It's just the look. Yeah.
That. Are you going to stop me? Try and stop me. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, it's hard to get through those stages too.
Yes.
I would like to say, that was I have the answers to that, but I really don't. I mean, it is that the challenges of, that I think is when it just becomes so hard to be consistent, because sometimes it would be just so easy to ignore or overlook when they test you that one extra time and you're exhausted.
Yes.
But then, they find a little weakness and
there they go.
Yep. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty of it as a mom of a teenager. It's really hard it's exhausting.
Yeah, because teenagers still test you, only they test you with like fun, big stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All kinds of good, fun, big stuff.
Well, I don't know, Heather, if you had any other questions, but maybe we can have Carrie back and talk about home daycare adventures.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be fun. I would love that.
I think some moms go into it with like
rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. Flappers. What is that?
Goggles. Flappers.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't even know. Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Of course, anytime. Until next time, don't forget to check us out on Facebook at
I Can't Mom Today podcast. That was me. That's me. It's my turn. And on YouTube, I Can't Mom Today podcast, and Instagram, I Can't Mom Today podcast, and I Can't Mom Today podcast at gmail.com.
Did you say YouTube?
I did say YouTube.
I was not listening.
You never listen.
Not listening. Well, until next time, have a great day.
Bye.